Hello again, Rickey Stein back with you to share another spotlight on BELMAR history with you all, and today to talk about postcards. Since this is a very long talk and I have a lot of things to share, this is going to be part one, and then we will do a part two next week. We at the BELMAR Historical Society have more than 1,100 postcards and images of postcards of BELMAR. And what I'm going to do is give you a rather abbreviated history of postcards to start. Certainly everyone over a certain age has either used or knows about postcards. While there is some dispute about their beginnings, there were non-postal cards printed in the early 19th century, but it was probably in 1869 in Austria that the first cards were used for postal service. This was a cheap way for soldiers to send messages back home, and of course this was an immediate success. This quickly spread all over Europe and eventually came to the United States about 1873. That year, the U.S. government issued its first official postal card at the cost of 1 cent. The side with the postage was designated exclusively for the address with the message on the other side. In 1874, an international size of 3.5 inches by 5.5 inches was accepted by all of the universal postal unit, or the postal units of all the countries in Europe and in the United States. The first truly picture postcard was printed in Paris, and it was of the Eiffel Tower. In 1889, the U.S. government regulations and laws started to change, and by 1901, the government allowed the use of the words postcards on cards from private printers, where before that the government had done all of the printing. The back was still undivided, but since other countries allowed the backs to be divided for address on one side and message on the other, the fronts were soon used for pictures of artwork. The public loved this so much that from about 1915 to from that time until about 1915, it is considered the golden age of postcards. In 1906, with the release of Kodak's now affordable folding pocket camera, the public was able to take black and white pictures and have them printed on the backs of postcards. These were called real picture postcards, and this became very quickly a gigantic commercial success. Most of the cards sold in the United States were made in Germany. The printing was really great, but this was up until about 1909 when a tariff was placed on German cards, and then with World War I starting in 1914, cards from Germany were no longer available. The cards that were produced at that point in America and in England were not as good as the German cards. Of course, the German cards were no longer available after the war because most of their facilities had been destroyed. Printing costs soared here in the States, and in order to save money on inks between 1915 and about 1930, the cards were printed with a white border. In 1931, a fellow by the name of Carl Teich began printing postcards on a textured paper, giving very bright and vivid colors and a linen appearance. Some cards retain the white border, but mostly he started printing the cards all the way to the edge and filled the entire card up. In 1939, high color and bright image cards called photochrome appeared, and these soon replaced the older linen cards. The linen cards were produced until about 1946, and some people say 1960. You find a mix of the cards. The dawn of the internet and digital printing and smart cell phones eventually killed off the postcard market. Kurt Teich is best known for his greetings from, or large letter postcards. I'm sure you've all seen it, with the name of towns. His cards had big letters and vivid colors and bold style. Many tens of thousands of these cards with different cities were produced over the middle of the 20th century. And his company also had more than 500,000 images that were used for picture postcards. Remember, there was no digital processing through those years, so we can do much more than those guys could have done at that point. Images were manipulated by putting in or taking out objects, and here's some examples, in order to enhance an image, and objects and people were outlined, making the cards appear to have been drawn. Cards were made by many printers, and for the BELMAR cards, the major printers were Carl Teich, the Tickner brothers, and Samuel Strauss in Brooklyn. There were distributors such as Star News and the Union News companies. And besides that, many local businesses such as variety stores and pharmacies had cards produced with their name on it to sell in the stores. Conover's Variety was one of these. My interest in cards was piqued when I found a card from Wellworth's 5 and 10 cent variety store in BELMAR. The store was on F Street at 10th. They were in BELMAR for only 3 or 4 years in the early 1920s. But this was my mother's family who owned these stores. We had heard that there were as many as 10 stores at one time, but the BELMAR store was unknown to me. Of course, the family legend goes that they were sued by Woolworths because the similarity of the name Wellworth, and they had to change the name or close the store, as they did in BELMAR. My favorite cards are the real picture postcards because the information there is clearly visible. They're like photographs. There were 2 professional photographers who made and sold cards at the beginning of the 20th century. E.L. Mix, who actually lived in BELMAR during the summer and had a studio initially on 5th Avenue and then on the boardwalk at 9th or 10th. And he was the president of the New York Photographers Association about 1916, 1917. And the other fellow was E.J. Seymour. And there was one company called the Illustrated Postcard Company. And I am especially on the lookout for these real picture postcards. There are scenes on some cards that are said to be BELMAR, but are stock photographs. Many times the same background was used for different towns. But the pictures that are truly of BELMAR hold a lot of hidden information, as bad as they may appear. We can look deeply into a picture and compare the cards with, and then hold them up to an old photograph. For example, this house on Ocean Avenue between 5th and 6th that was there in the early years of the 20th century. And this is just some of the mystery and the charm of postcards. Thank you for watching. Next time, part 2, we're going to present a slideshow of many of the postcards of BELMAR that we have in our files. Thank you for watching. Come back again soon.